No! No, God, please! Monster Hunter Rise is a game where you hunt monsters and rise to the occasion. And the literal first words you hear are "Ada Ada," spoken by Cutie Patootie twins. If you're into that kind of thing, which I mean, why wouldn't you be? The story this time is that... Now, my hope is that by being on the Nintendo Switch, aka the magical console that seems to sell almost anything during quarantine, that Monster Hunter can become more popular on this side of the pond, and we as a community can hopefully move past the disaster that was the movie, and just focus on the fun things, like this adorable little Kazoo plushie. Rise is basically Monster Hunter 6, and essentially Monster Hunter World 1.5, because a lot of the changes the series made in World are still there. But we get rid of the nasty bits, like an absurd amount of filler quests, cutscenes needing to be viewed before co-oping, the monsters all being wyverns, and all of the weapons just being bones. Rise is probably the easiest title to date, but the new mechanics just make hunting so much fun. I have covered Monster Hunter multiple times before, and gameplay does follow the simple flowchart of hit it. Is it dead? If not, then go back to 1. So let's just jump into the differences. I'll just say this now because I don't really know where else to. Don't always capture monsters. Normally this was the go-to in hunts, but now you actually get less rewards and will sometimes be locked out of select parts that you need to carve. Be sure to look at your notes to figure out how to get the part you want and don't just default to capping when playing online. The main difference in this game, however, is that you now have a new resource called wire bugs, which are a new method of movement and fighting. Each weapon has a multitude of silk bindings, which are special moves that can consume 1 or 2 bugs, and generally either power up your weapon, reposition you, deal buttloads of damage, or a fun combination of the 3. Playstyles are more customizable this time around, as you not only get to choose from different bindings, but you can also change up your moveset somewhat. Like the hammer, it gets a counter. You just put that bad boy up and you can block an entire fire beam. Granted, it's a little slow to come out, but still, on top of that, with a full charge and 2 bugs, you can do the El Kabong to slap down a big ol' pile of ouchies on a monster mandibles. But the best change of all? You can flip a dip on command now. Woo! I love the styles and Generations, and this gives me that kind of vibe. If I could like combine Generations and Rise, that would be my favorite title ever. On the movement aspects, the maps are now one giant locale similar to World, but less of a mess. Like, despite having hundreds of hours in World, I still get lost in the ancient forest. In Rise, you can use wire bugs to zip-zop through the air and climb on walls to be a ninja or something. The verticality of levels is limited to 2 layers, and then just mountains and hills you can easily climb. I really hope that Breath of the Wild 2 has a movement item similar to this, because imagine flipping around like this, but then comboing into bullet time on a bokoblin camp and then zipping over to another enemy to lay down an aerial engage with a weapon. And I swear to God, if you say, oh, so the hook shot, I will go feral, because the hook shot doesn't have momentum like this. It brings you to a spot and drops you. If anything, it'd be like the grappling hook in the air, but even that's too slow. I just really want to shoot the air and go into a glider. I have about 70 hours already, and one of my favorite parts is honestly just running around the map, which often benefits too, as the map comes equipped with tiny little buffs, so changing up your path to the baddies can boost you to bop them even harder. I do kinda wish I could max out the gauge with ease late game, but in all honesty, like I said, this is already the easiest title. The Clutch Claw from Iceborne is gone, and the maps don't tend to have many use this to deal damage things, outside of a couple of sinkholes and walls you can crash enemies into using the new riding technique. After you do enough damage by abusing silk binds, the monster will enter this
Ooh, I hope your honcho doesn't mount me
state, which admittedly kinda sucks because you can only mount them or ignore them. The first hit you do causes you to ride or die, which in multiplayer means you'll often be stealing the mounts. On those bad boys' backs, you have various abilities depending on the monster. I don't actually believe that the game tells you by holding different directions before doing heavy attacks, you can actually prompt different moves. You don't have to dodge mounted finisher attacks, so don't be scared of the final blow your beast bellows. On top of that, you also get a new buddy type called a Palamute, which is your good doggo. Yes, he is a good boy. Who is a good dog? It's you. They're mostly used for getting around, since you can't uber lizards like you could in World. The Palicos still beat them out in terms of tools and such too. You also always get to take one buddy into multiplayer, which is great for mobility, but holy hell does it make fights a little clustered, with 4 hunters and 4 pals throwing down. Like, where am I? Most things don't require as much to craft as they did in previous titles, and they were smart with recipes, where most blunt gear related weapons or armors won't require tails to craft. The trees allow you to roll back certain weapons or just build from farther points, so you don't have to upgrade an iron or bone weapon every time you want to make a new thing. I can't tell you how happy this makes me, as one of the reasons I fell out of World was I did not have my entire life to devote to the grind. The other major addition is the Rampages, which are tower defense minigames. A bunch of monsters that you hunt all run into a map that you can load up with cannons, ballistas, cannons, giant spears, nukes, and twins! It's essentially the siege missions from previous titles with multiple baddies instead of one, and they also made it fun instead of a chore. You don't have to shovel ammo and things, you just fire away. You can summon villagers to actually contribute, which just blew me away because holy crap! A character in Monster Hunter that isn't your main hunter actually hunting monsters in Monster Hunter? Like, holy wow, this party's getting crazy! Speaking of, how amazing will it be if in DLC there's crossover rampages where the NPCs you summon were actually characters from different games? Like, imagine actually pulling in Dante to go toe-to-toe with an Apex. But that's just wishful thinking that I know will never come to fruition. Some people do seem really peeved by this mode, but I've enjoyed all the rampages I've done. A factor for me was probably playing with friends. I haven't really felt the need or desire to do any rampages alone, so that could definitely be why I enjoy it and others hate it. I am honestly looking forward to the DLC rampages they could do, where like every monster is tiny, or an Elder Dragon only rampage. I miss silly quests. Rise might just be my favorite Monster Hunter title. I've had so much fun playing it, and even started doing a Monster Hunter Mondays on Twitch where I play with fans. Go check it out, self-promotion over. Most of the time I wind up helping peeps that are lower level than me, but I enjoy seeing how fast I can stomp a monster. I will say, however, this game was rushed out. It isn't finished. The game is missing its proper ending, and the monster roster is pretty small. It does have more than base world, and it may seem shorter because it didn't really have any of those expedition or track hunting fillers. You can't unlock your HR, which kind of limits the endgame, and by limits the endgame, I mean there really is no endgame. Most of the time I've just spent now is building sets waiting for updates. But the kicker was, I had clocked in 50 hours already when I beat what was given to me. It isn't like the other rushed out games where it's not only missing content, but it pads out the content available. This game is just non-stop gameplay with prep, hunt, upkeep, repeat. Despite literally just hunting monsters, I keep coming back. True, it's not a title for everyone. It's a very grindy and time-consuming game, even if it's not as much as the previous titles. But lordy, does it feel good when you finally get your set made for a weapon of choice. And as always, there's a lot to choose from.
I still dislike the insect glaive, but unfortunately, there's something a lot worse in this title.